Good morning. You guys are having a wonderful day. So I figured start a little bit early. I'm just going to be covering some fundamentals. We had an all about acrylics class on Monday. It was awesome. I had a lot of new students. So kind of want to go over a lot of the stuff that we covered on Monday just to give you guys a good idea. Kind of set your head straight with a little bit of a refresher. I've shown you guys what you should do when you're actually practicing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and set this up so that we're ready to rock and roll. The tips don't come like this. They come with, the larger refill sizes come with a little bit of plastic, and what I like to do is like to clip those off, and then I'll take a beat up file, right, that I use to kind of take down edges of other files, and I use that to round off the edge. Then I could use that to just kind of push down, right, multiple times. So if you guys are working with our nail trainer, the Young Nails nail trainer, this is completely different than the one that they sell, you know, the no-name brand on Amazon. The no-name brand on Amazon does not work like this, okay? You can get these really secure by pushing them multiple times. That way the tips don't pop off, right? And they're not like actually lifted up and above. All right, so before we actually get into application, what I want to be able to show you guys, I'm going to be working with a little bit of covered cherry blossom. I don't care what basically system you're working with, whether it's core or speed. You just have to remember that when you're working with either one of them, the setting times are going to be definitely faster when you're working with speed powders. So a lot of the cover powders have a medium set, but you can get them to set a lot faster, and I'll explain to you what I'm talking about. A lot of you guys, when you're starting, you have to remember that consistency, picking up beads are really important. So this is obviously a convex surface, but if I'm submersing my brush and I'm getting a lot of liquid, right, you're not going to be dragging through the powder. Dragging through the powder is going to create a lot of inconsistencies, especially when you're starting. What you want to be able to do is you want to be able to bounce in the powder. And I like to turn my brush upside down. That way it gets to flow really, really easy, right? So you can see the size of that bead. If I submerge my brush and I lightly tap almost in the center of my brush and I bounce, 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 you're going to see, right, bounce, bounce, bounce. I'm going to continuously pick up, right, the same size bead. It doesn't matter. It's always going to be the same. So, but if I take my brush and I push, you can see from the side, I'm actually pushing to bend the bristles. The first one I barely touch. If I'm actually bending the bristles, then bounce, 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 I'm going to be picking up something half the size, right? So I'm going to bend my bristles, then this is how I'm going to be getting something half the size. Also very consistent, as you can see from side to side. When you're setting powder down for the nail plate, it's a different consistency than actually on a form. When if you'll see, if I actually take my brush and I submerge it, and I lightly tap and I bounce, 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 and then I go to set it on a form, what ends up happening is this, right? You can see how fast that ran down the nail form. If I have the same consistency, I barely touch and I bounce, 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 and I wait 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then set this down, dude, this is night and day. It's still self-leveling, but it's not doing that. You see that? Okay, and then if I'm working only on a nail form, if I'm not working on a nail bed, you can see if I submerge my brush with the same amount of liquid and I bounce, bounce, bounce. But this time I actually drain my pearl on the towel, right? You can see on one side of my brush, and it becomes like a matte finish. And then I go ahead and set this down on the form. You can see that it doesn't move at all. You don't want that consistency when you're working on the nail. You almost want something in between, right? You want something in between. You never want the bottom one. That's not what you want to work with. That is going to create a lot of issues for sculpting. So one of the things we talked about was mastering the overlay, right? So for those of you guys that are starting, the overlay is the most important aspect, because it doesn't matter whether you're actually sculpting or gluing it on. What I do recommend is practicing on, say, some of the larger practice tips, and how you're going to achieve perfection is by doing this. So with the body, if I submerge my brush and I lightly tap, I'll work with, I'm working with my Signature Series brush. If you're working with a smaller brush like a number 9 or a 10, you just have to load up more liquid by lightly tapping, and then making sure that when you're actually going inside the powder, you can see I'm not vertical, I'm kind of at an angle, and I'm using the very, very front, right? The very, very front of that zone 1 part of the tip, right? To bounce. You can see as I'm bouncing inside the powder, it's on one side of my brush. You can see that kind of at an angle, right? That way, when I release it to whatever surface, it comes off without sticking to the tip of my brush. That's the consistency that you need, right? So if I'm working on this kind of nail and I need this to flow, what I need to be able to do is I need to submerge my brush. Again, I need to get a really, really nice bead, submerge my brush, bounce, 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 bounce. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then at 5, I release, and then it's still wet enough for me to get it nice and tight. So for those of you guys that are practicing, this is the key. I want to be able to show you this. Don't worry about this. What I want you to focus on is trying to get it really tight around here. You see that? And I didn't have to do that much work. You can see that the flow is very slow. So if I wanted to at this point kind of come in, right, and then just kind of like for an overlay, and I wanted to do a smile line, bro, you're set, right? You don't have to worry. All I got to do is kind of tuck that back, ready to rock and roll. But the key is making sure that you're getting it tight around here. So the consistency that you want to work with is like, you can see, I'm going to keep the liquid inside. I need to make sure that when I submerge my brush, I'm really loaded. You can see it kind of dripping on the back. So I'm going to barely touch this, and I need to make sure, right, that I'm coming down at the right angle so that when I'm bouncing, I'm able to get that really fluffy pearl. I don't hold my brush like this. I hold it up, right? 3, 4, 5. I can get that down, slow, release, and then use the tip of my brush. You can see how I'm balancing my fingers on my other hand so that I could slowly touch around the perimeter of the nail and execute absolutely flawless cuticles. That's how you get, and then you can even see from the side profile, like as the product starts to run down towards this way, it naturally shapes in an upper arch. So that is key. This is for those of you guys that are learning. I'm not concerned about you getting it down to here. You have to remember to eliminate lifting. You have to be able to set it down in one self-leveling bead so that everything is going to bond extremely well from literally like this point right here to about this point on the other side, right? That's really important, okay? And so I want you guys that are learning to understand that you have to be able to pick up the right size bead. You have to be able to understand that the consistency that you need has to be able to flow slow. Use the counting method. Set it down. Make sure you have good balance. And what I mean by that, like when I'm holding the hand, my finger is in this position so that when I'm working, I can touch around the perimeter of the nail. I'm not like bouncing or stabbing. I'm just lightly tapping around the perimeter of the nail to get it super tight, right? That's going to guarantee that you have smoking cuticles, get the product to flow down. But if you guys have any questions, hit me up. Always here to help. I hope this does, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks for tuning in. Love you guys. Peace.